Greetings. Thanks for joining me, Fred in Alaska. Sorry for the delay in uploads. Like I've said before, I like to speak to the people a few times just to catch the little nuances of what goes on, to share it in the right light, so to speak. For those of you who live in Alaska, there's the Borealis Bigfoot Convention, June 10th and 11th, up in Fairbanks at the Carlson Center. I guess tickets are already on sale for that. I'll be a presenter there. I'm not going to have some elaborate show. That's not what I do. I'm just going to share some stuff that doesn't get shared on the channel. Dr. Jeff Meldrum will be there, and some of the small town monsters people and whatnot. Should be interesting, you know, to be determined. But I signed on for that. We'll see how that goes. Again, it's June 10th and 11th, the Carlson Center. And again, they got tickets on sale. I'll put in a copy of the flyer at the beginning of this video, so you would have already seen it. Just pause on that. There's a website there. So what I've been talking to, we'll say his name is Rick. I've been talking to Rick for about 3 months off and on. Not my buddy Rick in Maine, but this guy Rick, he used to run a little guide service, just a rinky dink, just enough to get him by. He did it on the Nushagak River for approximately 10 years. And why he stopped was, over the course of that 10 years, he had 4 different experiences. First experience was by Sophie's Landing. Second, same area, Kiefer Cutoff, that little islands, little runoff islands and whatnot between Portage and Black Bluff. Now, I'll take a screenshot of the map in which I'm talking about. So he basically had 3 sightings and weird sounds in this area. But the 4th one that got him to stop was a charter. Someone paid for a charter service, basically freight. The guy was going up to the Mulchatna River. Now, this guy wanted to get dropped off up there for 2 months with contact and whatnot. Whenever he was in the area, Rick would go by or whatever, right? So let me start by sharing what initially happened. He was near Sophie's Landing. He had a group of 3 people. They were fishing for Nushagak kings. One of them caught one and had it on, and so everyone else reeled in their lines to not get it tangled, because those kings like to fight and run around. They run deep and get under stuff. Anyway, so he was doing his thing, and he drops the anchor because they were drifting down, and he wanted to stay put because he knew a little further down there was a bunch of deadfall in the water where the salmon could get caught up. So he dropped the anchor, and as he's dropping the anchor and he's tying it off on the front cleat, one of his passengers says, "There's a bear on the bank, there's a bear on the bank." Well, they're about 25 feet from the bank, and the bank is about 4 feet taller than them at that point. They were on the west channel. So he's like, "Don't worry about the bear, we're in the river, they can't get to us." He was just trying to calm a client, and this person goes, "That's not a bear." So he turns and looks and sees this black figure go from basically kind of hunched over to standing up and walk off into the trees. And he was just kind of stuck. He's like, what the hell was that? Everyone's just kind of one of his clients is still fighting this fish at the time, and so he just chalked it up. He goes, "Someone must be, you know, doing something in the woods or whatever." And the client that initially saw it was like, "That's no bear. That wasn't a bear." So guy catches his salmon, they get out of the area, and that was the end of that one. Second one, and those little islands, which is basically a bunch of different runoff spots for when the ice backs up and stuff. The little channels through there. I've shared many. There was a guy whose net got twisted up in the same area. So area is known for activity. So he gets screamed at with a group of 5 clients the second time. All they heard was a scream, but it was coming from up one of those sloughs. They were fishing for northern pike at that time. So he He didn't know what to make of it first time he had heard that, and left it alone. Third sighting he had was on the opposite side of the river, just upriver from Portage, on the Portage side, where the high bluff comes down and basically cuts back down to river level, which is it's a little ways up. It's been a minute since I've been up there, but so they're up on that side and they're in the deeper channel, and again they're fishing for king salmon. And again, his client gets his attention and points out, hey, there's a big, very big black bear up on the riverbank. Now at this point they're about 40 feet from the riverbank, and so what he's done is he's anchored off in a little bit shallower part of the channel, and he's having the people feed and run their lines down the deeper channel where the kings are. And so he looks over and he sees a black mass up there. He goes, oh yeah, that's a good sized one. Oh, some hunter's gonna be happy if he comes across them this year. He's talking to the clients about bears he's seen and everything, right? And then Rick gets this feeling of being watched, so he turns around immediately because he's got clients behind him as well, and he thought maybe one of them was staring at him or something and couldn't hear what he was saying because he was kind of talking to a group of 3 and there's still a couple behind him. So he turns around and they're focused on their lines and what they're doing, and he looks back over to the bank and he sees a face in the grass, and he couldn't make it out very well. Ashen gray, looked like someone had a parka hoodie on around the face, and very, very broad nose. But what threw him off was the size of the head, and he was trying to make out, like, am I seeing things? Is it like pareidolia or something? And he was trying to figure it out when it recessed back into the grass, and he was like, oh, that's really weird. And one of the clients sitting there that said, hey, I saw the black mass, that client saw it as well and asked, is that what the face of a black bear looks like? And he said no. Immediately everyone stands up and they're looking back over to the bank because everyone there caught this feeling. He said it was really weird. It was all at once, everyone's attention to the riverbank as this thing, it stood up. And when it stood up, it had 2 pieces of a broken spruce tree, black spruce. Beetle kill, obviously, because it's so you could see the bark torn on it from the beetles and whatnot. So he said this thing was holding 2 chunks and just looks at the people, kind of starts doing the swaying back and forth, and just kind of lowers its arms and drops the piece as it turns around and walks off into the trees, right? Everyone there was just like stuck, because he said the weirdest thing about that experience was everyone in an instant felt its presence and were drawn immediately to it. Everyone was chattering, and immediately, no one said, hey, look, none of that. Everyone just felt it, and boom, immediately had their attention. I get it. Been there. So now that leads up to, and they got out of the area. They, on the drift back down, no one was really fishing much. They kind of talked amongst each other a little bit about what they saw, and it basically was a quiet ride, he said, the rest of that day. Now, the ferry service, the whatever you want to call it, the freight service up to the Mulchatna. Now, as it's a river ride. Trust me, from Dillingham to the Mulchatna by river, it takes a minute. You're just not doing it like immediately, especially laden down with supplies and stuff. Well, this guy was going to Prospect, which is not the first time people have gone up there to do that. People do it all the time. Anyone who's been there, hey, hit me up, let me know what you've dealt with. So on the ferry ride up there, taking him and his supplies up there, he explains to him what I just explained to you guys, and told him to be careful, and asked him what he had for protection. The guy had a .22 pistol for grouse, small game to eat off of, had a bunch of canned goods, and he had a 12-gauge shotgun. Had a single box of rounds, slugs, 5 shots, and Rick goes, you can't just have those 5 shots. You may use up 2 chasing a bear away, and then you have 3. What if another one comes? You got to scare that away, then you're down to 1 or none. So he gives him a good dozen of his buckshot and 12-gauge slugs. And so they get up to the mouth of Mulchatna, and they're starting to go up the Mulchatna. Now the Mulchatna River is 143 miles or something like that. It's the second largest tributary to the Nushagak, next to the Nushagak. So they get up there, and now once you get up above Kalignik and you know, just up from there a little ways, there's a bunch of what they look like islands, but what they are is just where water kind of passes around ground and ends up cutting channels, right? So it looks like they're islands now, but they didn't start out as islands. It was overflow from the ice. So they went up in through there, and he was just showing them some of the beautiful scenery, right? And so they come back around and they start up the mouth of the Mulchatna, and the guy is looking at his topographicals, and Rick slows down and asks to see where exactly are you trying to go. Rick knew the area. He wanted to make sure he gets the guy where he wants to go. The guy's paying good money. Gets the map from him, sees the spot. He goes, okay, yeah, I know where you're going. So he gets up there a little ways to where this guy is given information by whoever to go there to pan. And again, it was going to take him back to the Mulchatna Hills, but where he wanted to camp was closer towards the mouth of the Mulchatna, not that far up. He wanted to take photos and do whatever. So they get there. He ties off and he starts helping this guy unload his stuff. The guy brought a canvas tent, little small belly, little pot-bellied stove to keep the place warm if he needed it. And this was in June. So it wasn't overly cold, but the guy wasn't from Alaska. So anyway, gets him and his supplies up on the ground and decides to kind of give him a heads up, because he's been that way before. And he goes, come with me, you know, grab your 12 gauge. Rick had his firearm on his hip, and they walk up the riverbank a ways until the trees parted out, and you could see some muskeg, and then you could see the Mulchatna Hills off in the distance there. And he goes, what you want to do and be aware of is don't, you know, on that side you're going to get lost. You stay to this side of the hills and you'll always be able to find the Mulchatna River. You won't get lost. Guy's like, I have a GPS, I'm good. And he says, again, GPS, batteries die, things happen, could fall, you could lose it, whatever. Just be aware, stay to this side of the hills, you'll always be able to see the river and find your way back to camp. Giving him life-saving advice. The guy's like, yeah, okay, I appreciate that. Rick feels better that he gave him the information, and they're heading back to this guy's camp. Nothing has been set up. Everything's been laid out. So, you know, he had a bunch of small, easy compacted, or packable mining stuff, you know, panning and all that. And as they're getting back to camp, this dark figure is on the opposite side of all the gear and walks off into the trees. And immediately, the guy that he was bringing saw it the same time Rick did. The guy immediately was like, that's a big bear. Rick goes, that's not a bear. That's a hairy man. That, you know, that's a Sasquatch over there. And the guy laughs. And he laughs real hard, and Rick goes, I don't think it's a good idea for you to stay here. And they had stopped their walk. They're about 25 yards from the campsite when they spotted it, and, you know, it walked off. And he, you know, he's talking to the guy on the trail, you know, not far from the riverbank, telling him, I think you should rethink staying here. You know, maybe someone in Kalignik you could pay to ferry you across it, you know, once every 3 days or something. He was trying to give him outs, and the guy was like, no, I think I'll stay. So as they're having this conversation, the trees often just inside the tree line start shaking, and a scream comes from it, and a bunch of cracking, just crack, 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 crack. If anyone's ever heard a beetle-killed spruce tree, a dead one, getting cracked, it's like, imagine taking 3 or 4 2x4s and snapping them all at once. It is a loud noise. So they're hearing that going on, and then the screams, partial roar, and the guy is down on his knees, his client's down on his knees with his hands over his ears, freaking out, trembling. Rick says, we need to get out of here. We will, you know, where's your pertinent stuff? The guy said, everything important to me, as he's crouched down, is in my backpack on my back. And he goes, well, come with me. Let's retreat out of here. and come back. We'll go camp out at Klignik, and we'll come back tomorrow and gather up your gear when this thing is hopefully gone on its way. Guy agrees. He has no argument at this point because he heard everything. Rick just went, you know, I mean, they were together side by side, and the guy's freaking out. So he stands up, and he's basically dragging his 12 gauge, holding it by the barrel and just dragging it. Rick said the guy was totally defeated. He could talk, but he had, all his words were tongue-tied. He was trying to ask Rick, what is that? You know, that was the only thing that was coming out, was what was that? And he goes, I told you that's a hairy man. And then he starts asking him, have you seen him before? And he goes, I told you of the experiences on the way up. And he goes, I thought you were talking trash. He goes, no. I wasn't just trying to regale you with Alaskan tales and whatnot. And so the guy was like, okay, let's just go. So they start walking together. The guy's dragging his 12 gauge, and Rick tells him, put that damn shotgun on your shoulder and make sure you got around it and on safety till we get in the boat and we get away. So as the guy's racking around into the shotgun and putting it on safety, some more screams come. But the screams are a little bit closer, but still just behind where they stacked all his equipment. And he said it was a burst of brush and the little alder willows and stuff, and like a whole portion of this guy's gear just gets flung out. Some of it landed in the skiff, some of it landed in the river, and another scream, and then this dark mass retreats back into the trees. Another scream, and they saw trees shaking and moving away from them. And immediately guy's trembling again, and then Rick realizes this guy is muzzling me with this shotgun. So he grabs the barrel of this guy's shotgun and tells him, hey, just let go of the gun, let go of the gun. Takes the shotgun from the guy, slings it over his shoulder, and goes, come on, just follow me, stay behind me. There was crap in the end of the barrel. He saw when he grabbed it from him, it was all plugged up with shit. Bad scene for the guy. Slung it over his shoulder, drew his pistol, and he only had a 44 mag, but it was something, right? So he gets the guy to follow him down, has the guy get in the skiff. The guy at this point didn't give a crap about his stuff, you know. Gets in the skiff, unties, they start drifting away. He gets back past the guy, fires up the engine, the outboards, and starts turning around. He's kind of letting the current kind of swing the bow around, right? And as he's doing so and giving it a little bit of throttle to, you know, help ease it around, some more of the guy's stuff comes flying out. Some of it went all the way across, and some of it landed in the river. And some more screams, and you know, he got clear and got out of there. And once they cleared the mouth, Klignik was just downriver but across the river. And he asked him, do you wanna camp out in Klignik and we'll get your stuff tomorrow? He was like, just take me to the airport. And so that's what he did. But because of that situation, the next time Rick tried to go out and bring people with, he felt such a burden of keeping them safe that he couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't put himself in a position to where he's responsible for their lives, but yet truly ignorant to what could happen. And he didn't want that on him. He didn't want that on his conscience. He didn't want that to be part of anyone's experience with him. And he essentially quit. I grant you it was a slow process. He had to sell off his stuff and, you know, whatever, cancel clients and all that stuff. But Rick no longer does that. He still goes out in the woods, but he doesn't bring people along. He just his passion is lost, and I understand that one completely. I really do. I go out in the woods, but my passion is gone from it. Yeah, I do it, you know, but it's not like it used to be, where before my experience in 06, I would, let's go over that next hill. Nowadays it's like, yeah, let's go over that hill, let's go see what's going on over there, kind of thing. You know, I know how it is to lose the passion, and there's so many that suffer in silence. So again, if you need to get it off your chest and don't want it shared on the channel or whatever, just hit me up, you know. Get it off your chest. Don't walk around with that burden, because some people, it's not all, but some people self-medicate. They get in a bad way, and you just don't want that. Anyway, thanks again for joining me, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Also, there's some really eye-opening little people experiences coming up within the next video or two. Just beyond creepy, because there's no answer for it, you know, and the information's coming directly from the horse's mouth, natives in the village who've experienced it. So yeah, I can't discount that. I can't just kind of roll my eyes at it, because that's not the native way. They're not going to just sit there and tell you a story. So anyway, thanks again for joining me, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.